Snow clung to his boots like lead, each step heavier than the last. Breath tore from his lungs in white bursts, the freezing air burning his throat. The forest around him was a blur, black pines whipping past in streaks, the ground hidden under an endless shroud of white. Behind him, the sound came again. A deep, rhythmic thump. Footsteps. Heavy ones. Branches snapped. A guttural exhale rolled through the trees. He didn't dare look back. Every instinct screamed to keep moving, to get away. His mind flashed images from survival shows, from cautionary tales, claws as long as his fingers, teeth that could crush bone. The sound grew louder. Closer. A quick glance over his shoulder. Brown. Massive. Unstoppable. The bear's eyes locked with his, dark and unblinking, its breath sending plumes of vapor into the frozen air. Panic exploded in his chest. He ran harder, ignoring the way his calves screamed in protest. Snow sprayed behind him with every desperate stride. But the forest was against him. Roots snaked just beneath the powder, ready to catch his feet. Branches clawed at his jacket. His breath came in ragged gasps, each one a knife in his lungs. The sound of pursuit was relentless. The bear wasn't slowing. A dip in the snow ahead became a slope, and before he could stop himself, he was sliding, tumbling into a hidden ravine. His knees hit first, then his hands. Cold shot up through his bones. When he lifted his head, the walls around him rose steep and slick with ice. No way up. No way forward. A shadow moved above. The bear appeared at the edge, massive against the pale sky, snow drifting from its fur. It stood still, chest heaving, watching him. He scrambled backward until his shoulders hit rock. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. The bear took one slow step down toward him. The cold seeped into his bones, numbing his fingers even through the gloves. He pressed his back harder into the wall of the ravine, eyes locked on the massive shape descending toward him. The bear's paws crunched into the snow, slow and deliberate, each step sending a tremor through the ground. His breath came in short bursts now, his chest tight, the air thick with the scent of pine and something else, wild, musky, alive. His mind raced through every possible escape. Climb? The ice was too slick. Run? The bear was between him and the only exit. Fight? The thought was laughable. The animal stopped halfway down, its enormous head tilting ever so slightly. Its breath plumed in slow, visible waves. It wasn't charging. It wasn't roaring. It was just watching. A gust of wind howled through the ravine, carrying with it a spray of loose snow that dusted the bear's fur in sparkling white. The animal's eyes glinted in the low light, not with the feral rage he'd imagined, but with something unreadable, something almost calculating. A sound broke the silence. Not from the bear, but from behind him, a sharp crack of shifting ice. He twisted his head, heart pounding, to see a hairline fracture zigzagging across the frozen stream at the ravine's base. Water welled up through the split, black and restless beneath the ice. Another crack. Louder this time. The bear's head turned sharply toward the sound, ears twitching. In that instant, he realized the truth that chilled him more than the wind ever could. The bear hadn't been chasing him. It had been following. The ice groaned under his boots. He froze, every instinct screaming not to move. The bear took another slow step forward, eyes now fixed not on him, but on the spreading fracture. A deep, low sound rumbled from its chest, not aggression, but urgency. A warning. The ice beneath him gave one final, deafening crack. The world gave way in an instant. One heartbeat, he was teetering on frozen ground. The next, he was swallowed whole by the black water beneath. The cold was violence. It punched the air from his lungs, crushed his chest, and stabbed every nerve with knives of ice. The shock stole his breath before he could even scream. His body convulsed, arms flailing for something solid, but his gloves slid uselessly across jagged ice edges as the current yanked him under. The light above became fractured and distant, filtered through swirling snow and shards of ice. He kicked hard, but the weight of his soaked clothes dragged him deeper. His lungs burned. The water roared in his ears, a sound both deafening and empty. Through the chaos, a shape appeared above the surface, massive, dark, and moving fast along the break in the ice. A paw impossibly large, slammed down onto the edge, sending cracks racing outward. Another paw reached toward the water, claws curling just above the surface. He tried to reach up, but the current spun him sideways, slamming his shoulder into a submerged rock. Pain burst white-hot through the cold, but it also jolted him awake. He kicked again, hard, and his head broke the surface for a single gasping breath. The bear was there, towering over the gap, its fur bristling with frost. It leaned forward, chest low, eyes locked onto him. The sound it made wasn't a growl this time. It was deep, guttural, urgent, a command to move, to fight. The ice around him began to collapse in slabs, sending waves crashing against his face. Then the paw struck, not in attack, but in a desperate swipe that hooked the collar of his coat. For a terrifying moment, the world was nothing but claws, ice, and the unbearable drag of the current trying to claim him. Then with a violent heave he was airborne, flung up and over the ice edge, coughing, retching, his vision swimming. And the bear was still between him and the water. He collapsed on his side, coughing up the river, the ice scraping against his cheek. Every breath was a ragged gasp, pulling air into lungs that felt raw and frozen. His limbs refused to work at first, trembling under the weight of waterlogged clothes. The bear's shadow loomed over him. Its fur steamed faintly in the cold, as if the heat of its body was fighting the storm. For a long moment, neither of them moved, just the wind howling and the river snarling behind. Then the bear's head jerked toward the tree line. He followed its gaze. At first, he thought the movement in the woods was the wind stirring branches. Then he saw them, shapes. Too low and too steady to be snowdrifts, too fast to be deer. For no, 5 of them, slipping between the trees in silence. Wolves. Their pale coats made them almost invisible against the snow, but their eyes glinted in the dull light. They were watching, not the bear but him. The bear stepped forward, planting itself between him and the forest. The gesture was unmistakable: stay down. His pulse pounded in his ears, drowning out the cold. One wolf broke from the tree-line, padding closer. Its breath smoked in the air, jaws parting slightly. Another followed, circling to flank. They moved with patient precision, testing the distance, gauging weakness. The bear's growl started low, a rumble that vibrated through the ice beneath him. The wolves hesitated. Snow swirled between them like a curtain, but the tension was sharp enough to feel in his teeth. He knew he couldn't run. His legs were half frozen, and the wolves would tear him down in seconds. The bear shifted its weight forward, claws sinking into the snow, its massive shoulders bunched for the first strike. And in that moment he understood. The river hadn't been the only thing trying to kill him today. The world shrank to a white blur and the shapes moving within it. Snow fell harder, each flake stinging against his face, but he barely noticed, all his senses locked on the wolves and the bear. The lead wolf crept closer, paws silent on the snow, its body low and coiled. Another slid to the side, eyes fixed on him like he was already meat. The rest fanned out in the tree-line, their movement ghost-like in the swirling storm. The bear didn't flinch. Its breath plumed in heavy bursts, ears pinned back, eyes locked on the wolf in front. It let out a deep rolling roar that cut through the wind, not a wild scream, but a sound of warning. A claim. The wolves halted, their tails stiff. Even at a distance, he could see their hesitation. The bear took one deliberate step forward, snow crunching under its weight, its shoulders swaying with controlled power. He lay frozen in the snow, every instinct screaming to move, to crawl backward, to vanish into the drifts, but something about the bear's stance made him stay. The animal was guarding him. He felt it in the way it always kept itself between him and those pale eyes. A second roar ripped through the air. The lead wolf's ears twitched back, and it took a half step in retreat. But the hunger in their gaze didn't fade. They circled, weaving in and out of the mist, testing, waiting. Minutes stretched into something longer, the wind screaming around them. His body ached, cold gnawing deep into his bones, yet his focus never left the line between predator and protector. Then, as if the forest itself exhaled, the wolves began to melt away into the trees, silent, reluctant, but leaving. Only the lead wolf lingered for one last stare, then turned and vanished. The bear lowered its head, gave one last rumble, and looked back at him. It was time to move. The storm eased as if the forest had decided the fight was over. The wind softened, and the snow no longer came sideways. It fell in slow spirals, each flake catching the dim light that filtered through the clouds. He tried to stand, but his legs buckled. Every muscle in his body screamed from the cold. The bear moved toward him, slow and deliberate, Not the way a predator closes in, but the way a guardian approaches a wounded thing. It stopped just a few feet away, its massive frame blotting out the gray sky. He could hear the deep rhythm of its breath, see the frost clinging to the fur around its muzzle. For a heartbeat, they simply stared at each other, two creatures caught in the same wild, unforgiving world. Then, with a shift of weight, the bear turned its head toward the forest. It took a few steps, stopped, and looked back. He understood. The bear led, pushing through the drifts with a certainty that seemed impossible in the endless white. He followed in its path, each step sinking deep, his boots heavy with ice. More than once, his knees gave out, and each time he lifted his head, the bear was there ahead waiting. They crossed a frozen stream, wound between black pines, and crested a ridge where the trees thinned, and there in the hollow below, smoke curled from a cabin's chimney. His throat tightened. He turned to the bear, wanting to say something, to give thanks in a language the forest might understand. But the animal was already stepping back, snow muffling its retreat. It paused just at the tree-lean, eyes catching the faint light. For a moment, it felt like the forest itself was looking at him, deciding. Then it turned and vanished into the white. He knew he'd never see it again. But he would never forget the choice it made.